Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session, as we'll call it, we are covering some news. This is the big news for Overwatch today. You guys saw the quote that I put on the title card here, so in theory, we're going to learn from this that they really don't want to start the next season of Overwatch League until Overwatch 2 is out, and that enthusiasm has sort of dried up. Yeah, we'll go with that. So we're going to get into this. I'll read through it. I'll definitely be giving my reactions. If you guys have questions, comments you want to get in here, you can absolutely throw them up in chat. I will get to chat. If you want me to react before we've sort of gotten to an appropriate breakpoint, you're going to have to get a super chat in there. But primarily, we are here to give everyone updates. And before we begin, I do know some people considered Richard Lewis to be controversial. I don't know the full details of why people consider him to be controversial. I do know he sort of had it in for Overwatch League and Overwatch as an esport failing sort of in its infancy. So I know there's some there, perhaps, if this is the person that I think I'm remembering, anyways. But he is the writer. This is the big news of the day. We're going to get into it. So, sources have informed Dextro that following the highly publicized lawsuit from the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, Activision Blizzard held a meeting with Overwatch League owners. We have been told that owners are becoming increasingly disaffected with leadership decisions, the costs around running a franchise, and the lack of a coherent plan for the future of the league that they hope will be bolstered by the release of Overwatch 2. That's not surprising. They've been unhappy that the league wasn't making money hand over foot the way that they, I don't want to say were promised, but were probably led to believe by the buy-in prices. We, of course, weren't there in those sales pitch meetings to potentially slot buyers of how much money it stood to make or things like that. But most people who own a slot here and say also own a slot in the Call of Duty League are much happier with the Call of Duty purchase than the Overwatch League purchase. That's just sort of reality. So it hasn't turned out quite as nice as they'd liked, especially after that first year. In the first year, they had that monstrous Twitch deal, a deal that is considered by Twitch to have been a bad deal internally, or so we've been told. But we do know that since then, things have kind of gone downhill with Overwatch League. The Overwatch League 1 season, very successful, been poor since then. Those were expensive buy-in slots, 20 million in the first season, 40 to 60 in later seasons. Understandable. So let's get into it. July 20th saw the suit against the game developer after 2.5 years of investigation into their workplace culture, with many credible allegations of sexual harassment and gender-based discrimination. The initial PR response from Activision was seen as a poor one, with Bobby Kotick later admitting it was tone deaf and it prompted staff protests and walkouts. Sure. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that. It sort of turns into it was a poor reaction. It definitely was a bad reaction. It's always challenging for companies when this happens to them in some ways because most of the things that people want them to do would be considered admissions of guilt, which they're not going to do while fighting a lawsuit. So that's always a bit of a uh, how much was some of that avoidable type thing. It was completely avoidable, of course, by not doing some of the practices back in the day, but like the reaction, how much of that was avoidable. But I know that's not the popular thing you'll hear about on the internet. You'll just hear Blizzard, Activision bad, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying those things were good. I'm just saying this is sort of how it tends to work once these lawsuits pop up. Obviously, you shouldn't get in these situations in the first place. Okay, our sources inform us that even prior to the lawsuits and the loss of league sponsors, I want to know more about this loss of league sponsors. Like, we read the article on that, and I would like to. Calling something loss of sponsors is like, did they actually stop getting money from all these sponsors? Did these sponsors actually get out of their contracts, or are the sponsors just not putting their brands up there? Like, we're reporting this like fact when I haven't seen any report of this that is actual fact of anyone who's going to stand on this. Like, what's the source here? Like, yes, we saw the Washington Post article. I read the Washington Post article on this stream, and then we saw that like you didn't have people drinking from Coca-Cola labeled bottles anymore on stream. Coca-Cola had removed their branding, things like that. So definitely, but do we have a source, because it's not here, for they actually stopped getting sponsorship dollars there? That would be interesting to me. multiple team owners were dissatisfied with the direction the league was heading and the delays to the release of Overwatch 2. Absolutely. Absolutely. Multiple team owners were always going to be dissatisfied that the league stopped going in a great upwards growth direction. We didn't get the localization that was supposed to be the secret ingredient that would make OWL work, where other esport projects being forced into existence had failed before. Because Overwatch was sort of forced into existence as an esport. There was a small scene, it was an interesting scene before OWL, but it wasn't at the size that Blizzard wanted, so they just put a ton of money into it to try to make it bigger with all these buy-ins and such. And that's, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but the owners who put a lot of that money in are of course they're going to want a return on their investment. That's not really a surprise. But they're always going to say, we want Overwatch 2, we want Overwatch 3, we want Overwatch 4. They're always going to want the next big thing. That's not necessarily a thing. In this case, I think they're right. I'm just objecting for the sake of objecting. We were already set to have talks with league operations because a few of us have been looking at our options. One franchise owner told Dextro, you don't have many of them. The timing of the lawsuit couldn't have been worse. It came out of nowhere. Well, it probably came out of nowhere as far as the league owners, spot owners are concerned. It probably didn't come out of nowhere as far as Activision is concerned, but I don't know that. The lawsuit story was dominating the game press, and the blanket coverage prompted more whistleblowers to come forward. So it was against this backdrop the owners' meeting took place on July 23rd. Sources say the company's representatives wanted to tell league owners that the lawsuit contained false allegations that they would be fighting against. Sources say the company's representatives wanted to tell league owners that the lawsuit contained false allegations that they would fight against. I don't doubt that they wanted to say that. And that could even be true. The question is it like, hey, wait, there's these two false allegations out of 30 in here? Or is that like, no, it's completely false? And that's what they wanted to tell them, potentially as a lie to them, to keep them on board and to say no, everything's fine, etc. Like that's the better question here. Like this, of course, I expect anyone to say that because I'm sure they can find a few things that they can go, no, we can disprove this, we can push holes in this one, etc. But can you push holes in enough of the lawsuit to beat it, or is it going to be like, aha, we beat a 30th of it, we beat a 7th of it? Well, you're still dead at that point. It was a few days after the lawsuit when we all got together, and it wasn't the usual people that we talked to. One source present during the call told us. Instead of league ops, it was legal representatives from Activision and Brandon Snow, head of Activision Blizzard Esports. So it wasn't league ops, it was head of legal from Activision and then head of Activision Blizzard Esports. They flat out denied multiple claims in the lawsuit and told us they'd be challenging it. Well, of course they were going to challenge it. And I'm sure there are claims that they feel they can challenge well, but how much of it can they challenge? Like, again, that I would like to know, because I'm sure the league spot owners are smarter than this, or the people that they sent in are smarter than this, and went, well, how much of it can you beat? Like, that's the real question. I would be very surprised if they didn't get pushback from the league owners saying kind of just that, perhaps in different words. Well, how much of it can you beat? Sort of thing. Like, how much of that do you have strong evidence as falsehoods, etc.? Obviously, multiple representatives expressed their concern about the nature of the lawsuit because no one wants to be associated with that type of thing, sure. The way Brandon Snow handled the call also left a bad taste in many of our mouths. Right, he was trying to control the call because he doesn't want the call to get loose. He doesn't want this to be a discussion. He wants it to be very structured because he's stepped into a call when you guys are used to having more of a back and forth with League Ops. Now, it's a back and forth with League Ops where League Ops probably doesn't actually listen to you much, but they pretend to listen to you. They pretend that they're taking your changes seriously. Sorry, I could be wrong. That's a guess. That's a guess based on some contender stuff. But the league people have more of a buy-in than the contenders team did. So maybe that's not true. Um, He referenced his being on vacation multiple times during the call, as if that inconvenience was somehow relevant to the context of the allegations in the pending suit. No, what that's trying to do is that's trying to say, this is why I don't have all the answers, this is why I can't give you extreme details, etc. Like, this is not a surprise play. This is like, well, this is why I don't have all of the details. This is why I can't give you exactly what we're going to be able to do. This is why I'm not as prepared. Yeah, that's, I mean, the reality is, we all know how this works. If you're working law like this, you're in a situation where, guess what, you're no longer on vacation, because this is one of the bigger things that you guys have had to deal with in a while. Your vacation is over, you're now dealing with this, and that's why you're getting paid six figures plus to go do these types of things. Like, that's how that works. As company spokesperson for Activision Blizzard told Dextro, we hold regularly scheduled calls with our team owners to talk about league matters and developments. I mean, if that's your comment, you could have just said no comment. That's fine. We are told that discussions during the call included the problems facing the league, now that the company was facing the likelihood of losing sponsors at a time when the league was already facing significant challenges. Well, hold on. Did they lose sponsors? Or are they facing the likelihood of losing sponsors? Or did they lose sponsors and they're facing the likelihood of losing more sponsors? Give me more details here. And I don't even care if it's sources say or, one source says, but like, I want someone actually reporting that rather than this line that we had, where was it, up here, which was loss of league sponsors that isn't sourced to anything. Again, you can just source it to an anonymous source, and I get that. That's how reporting in these kinds of situations can work. But like, I want a little more here. Okay. While the economics of Overwatch League have improved significantly since the start, I mean, sure, in the sense that in the start, minus 20 million, they got better than that. I agree. I don't think they're going to be as good as year one, where you got the giant Twitch deal, for example. But hey, YouTube did not pay as much as Twitch. More and more owners are starting to be concerned over the lack of growth in viewership and revenue. While the league has monetized well historically, it really isn't in a place where it can afford to lose sponsorship dollars for other reasons. Agreed. Obviously, those whose business is most reliant on ABE properties were the most concerned. Sure. The source also confirmed that even prior to the lawsuit, many owners have been weighing up the potential of selling their franchise slots. The problem is that doesn't help right now because the league is tainted by Activision Blizzard being tainted, and by the Overwatch IP sort of being tainted by a lack of content update, people believing culturally that it's a dead game, etc. With Activision having approval over slot sales to prospective buyers, many no longer believe in the viability of Overwatch League and are lingering not through choice. Right. That's what your contract says. That's how it works. And that's not unusual. That's common for leagues. You'd see that in NBA, MLB, etc. The price that they would be compelled to sell at due to outstanding franchise fees is higher than most people's current valuation for a slot. Yep. However, the source thinks it's best for the future if Activision tries to find owners who haven't checked out. The source thinks it's best for the future if Activision tries to find owners who haven't checked out. That's probably that statement's kind of meaningless to me because I look at that. And what this says to me is their source is one of the teams. It's someone from one of the teams' management that interacts with Activision Blizzard. No big surprise there. And that source, who works for one of these teams or is a shareholder in one of these teams, thinks it would be good if ActiBliz spent effort finding people for them to sell slots to at a rate that they think is acceptable, even if it's not great, so that they can get out of it. Like, of course they're going to think that, but that's a very biased from their point of view thing to believe that Activision should try to spend lots of effort going and doing that, rather than spend that effort, say, making their game better, making the league better. Whatever. Okay. Again, I will catch up to you guys in chat in a bit. We shouldn't have too much more here. We might have too much more here. Okay. Oh no. Yeah, we do. Looks like we won't have too much more here. Okay. If interested buyers for L franchise exists, ABE should do anything, Activision Blizzard Entertainment should do anything they can to facilitate transactions to prove that liquidity exists, and there are still owners who remain bullish. Again, that's a very current owner-centric standpoint. That's probably not an objectively accurate standpoint. An objectively accurate standpoint would be you don't want transactions to happen right now. This is just like in anyone's shoes unless you're literally the owner that's having the transaction happen, because if you're Blizzard or if you're another owner, any transactions that happen right now are going to establish that the threshold for a team used to be this value or this value, and now the value for a team is this value. And you don't want that on the books. You don't want people when then people, let's say they get through this, et cetera, and go, okay, well, now we got through it, et cetera. Well, the last time that a franchise transferred ownership, it transferred for 8 million, so now we think it's 12 million. No, you don't want that. Like, unless you're the team who got out and got the 8 million and an hour less underwater, you don't want this to happen. If you're the team that gets it, you might want this to happen. But if you're any of the other teams or Blizzard Entertainment itself, you don't want that to happen. So that's, again, this is a very self-interested viewpoint. Mm-hmm. Forget about the 10 million of paid-in franchise fees. Forget about the 10 million of paid-in franchise fees and the outstanding obligations. Just getting transactions done at any price would be good for the league and the owners who wish to remain committed. No, it wouldn't. It would not be good for the league or the owners who didn't go sell their spots. It would actually be bad for them. This is like that people think like this is wrong, and it's scary that these people have the amount of control that they do over slots that cost 20, 40, 60 million to buy into. Like, and I'm not saying they have total control. They wouldn't actually be able to make the decision to do anything with the slot by themselves, but the people who don't have this sort of understanding are put in the situations where they're going to the meeting with Blizzard to determine the future of how they interact. It's just like hire better people. Seriously. Hire people with better business savvy, better economic savvy, better whatever. The league has faced a series of challenges that have all contributed to the view that it has failed to deliver on its early promise. At the start of 2020, Activision's deal for exclusive broadcast rights with Amazon-owned streaming service Twitch ended, prompting a move to YouTube that was packaged with the Call of Duty League and Hearthstone esports product. The esports viewership measuring platform, Esports Chart, placed this move as being key factor in experiencing a 61% decline in viewership. Right. Uh, I'm aware of that. I'm a YouTube streamer and I see what the Twitch streamers get, and Twitch streamers that know that they are behind me and their influence, etc., get more viewership than I do. But there's a question of Twitch was never going to pay as much as they did for their first few years for future years. So that was going to be tough. So you sort of had to go, well, can we bid with this? And Twitch actually felt like they got burned by the first couple of years. So it was going to be hard to even get them to pay a fair price at that point. So it was going to be easier to get a fair price out of YouTube, and you also were able to dress it up better to stockholders, to anyone who can see financials, etc., by packaging it with other stuff so they can't see how much of a decrease it was from the previous deal, because now it's packaged with other things. So that helped for the movement, etc. But whatever. Okay. But being on YouTube was always going to cause a decline, and that's not necessarily bad, because like if YouTube is monetizing the views and monetizing advertisers better than Twitch was, hint, it probably is. That's not necessarily the end of the world from a, again, business standpoint. Obviously, you'd like the viewership growth. You'd like that. You'd like it to be a better cultural touchstone. That's better for it, but it's not as bad. Is YouTube doing it 61% better? No, no, they're not. So that 61% decline definitely still hurts. And there was a lot more Overwatch infrastructure on Twitch, so it did hurt them. I don't disagree. Okay. The global pandemic has also severely. Sorry, one second, guys. The global pandemic has also severely impacted plans for revenue generation around the league. The highly touted homestead model, which would see teams travel and compete at local venues in home and away fixtures, was shelved after a few test events as lockdowns, travel restrictions set in. Okay, yes, but like they were already backing away from this going into season three. Season three originally was supposed to be no, we are actually legit doing homesteads. We're doing the league, we're going around to the spots, etc. And then it wasn't. It was let's do a homestead in Dallas where it'll be like multiple Texas teams plus some other teams pretending to have home games, and we'll play like 6 games here, and now we're away. And now for another 3-day weekend, we'll do some over here, and we'll have like 4 to 6 homesteads over the league, and they'll just be like 6 games each, and the majority will still be in Blizzard spot, etc. Like or whatever. Like that was not good. We didn't actually get what we were supposed to in season three, and it's continued, and this made it worse. But really, Goats was the beginning of this going the wrong way. Uh, yeah, I'm not saying that the pandemic didn't hurt it though. In March 2021, the Activision Blizzard president of sports and entertainment, Tony Petitti, told the Sports Business Journal that they were going to become less dependent on live events, a decision that came with an estimated 50 layoffs from the company's esports team. Okay, but like, I'd want to know more about those 50 layoffs. Were those 50 layoffs like, hey, you're the snack guy that goes around and sells sandwiches and soda, or were those 50 layoffs, hey, your league development staff, etc. Like, there's a little bit to that, but okay. Franchise owners were already hurting financially, with multiple franchise owners taking government PPP loans during the pandemic. The loss of live events due to that was a major change to Envy 2020's business strategy, going from an expected 7 events hosted in North Texas to only the single event. Sure. A representative of Dallas Fuel told ESPN in another report in the Washington Post, the head of events at Atlanta Reign franchise explained that the business model relied on hosting live events and they were burning through everything right now with no help. Right, they're all crying for help from Blizzard Activision, and don't get me wrong, I understand why they want that, and they can feel like they negotiated a bad deal with Blizzard Activision. And by the way, I think there was some of negotiating a bad deal with Blizzard Activision from the teams to buy in like what the required level of support from Activision Blizzard was in terms of, oh, we're putting all this money in the pot and that's going to cause you guys to run the league in this very nice way, right? Well, sort of. I think there's some room for complaint from them. So I am not like I'm not anti ownership here of the groups. I just also see the bias of the ownership where they're like, Activision, give us money. Give us money to help us with this, which is a little like, eh. But yes, no, I can absolutely sympathize. This hurt everyone. This hurt everything in terms of, hey, you're planning for these events and then it doesn't happen, and then your profits sink, and then you're burning through money just to keep your franchise alive, which isn't great. But you've got huge sunk costs, so just dropping it isn't amazing either. The lawsuit was going to further impact on league's financial woes. On August 5th, Washington Post confirmed the fan noticed absence of certain sponsor logos on the broadcast was indeed. It didn't, though. Like, it didn't do that. We read that article. On August 5th, the Washington Post had confirmed that the fan noticed absence of certain sponsors' logos on the broadcast was indeed a sign of their intention to pull out of the league altogether. It did not say these words. You have to reach. Like, the title suggested this, but it did not say these words. It did not source these words. It did not even leave these words as background. It led the readership to believe that this was true, but it didn't actually do so in any way that it stated that that was the case. Um, that's a little annoying, but whatever. Absent logos included Coca-Cola, State Farm, and T-Mobile. Yep, those are all absent. On August 6th, Kellogg's confirmed they would no longer be sponsoring the league and explained their decision to the publication Polygon. Okay, that might be worth reading. I don't love having to click through to a Polygon thing to do it because Polygon has not the best history of reporting in the video game scene, but that's okay. We find these allegations troubling and inconsistent with our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, their spokesperson, Chris Banner, said. While Activision Blizzard has announced plans to address the challenging issues it faces, we will not be moving forward with any programs this year, but will continue to review progress made against their plans. So if you guys can become hip and cool again and people forget about this, we'd love to give you money so that people buy our stuff again. Sure, sure. Standard enough stuff. Two franchise sources have stated the following. Two franchise sources have stated that following the news about sponsors, well, actually, this is some reporting that like, hey, they actually did potentially pull out here. Will not be moving forward with any new programs this year. Again, that's not saying that Blizzard Activision didn't get any of the money that they previously had, expected to get. That's like they aren't going to upsell us to buying further spots. But how much had you paid? How you paid in advance? How much, etc. Like again, I want to know more here. Two sources have stated that following the news about sponsors, Activision Blizzard representatives had told them that several sponsors weren't pulling out but were waiting for the environment to improve before allowing their logos to be used again. Okay, that is interesting. So we do have sources saying, hey, please don't put our logos up there, but we haven't actually pulled out. We don't actually have a clause that lets us get out, or we don't want to activate that clause because if you become clean, if you become hip again, we're already out at that point. This is new information. Interesting. Both sources stated that they hadn't been able to confirm if that was accurate or simply a reassurance tactic from league operations. Yeah, but this is actually more definitive, even though we can't confirm it's true, than what we saw from Washington Post. So, or what we got in this quote of, hey, won't be moving forward with any new programs. For many franchises, there were now two glimmers of hope. The first, obviously, was a return to normalcy once restrictions were lifted. The second was the release of Overwatch 2, which, according to sources we spoke with, had become synonymous with a hard reset of the league and a potential resurgence of enthusiasm among fans of the IP. When rumors started to circulate that the game was going to face delays, the team owners wanted to know how long that would realistically be the case. On August 7th, the reputed Overwatch insider Metro spoke publicly. The reputed Overwatch insider Metro? Who thinks Metro is a great source? Interesting. About these rumors, stating that from what I gather, a release in 2022 doesn't seem likely anymore. I'm not sure that people consider Metro's leak history good enough to be okay. Whatever, sure. An internal Activision Blizzard source told Dextro this was incorrect and added that getting the game out as soon as possible was now a high priority. It probably should have been a high priority for a while, but that's okay. We're more than aware we need to get it out, they said. So the word is the dev team has been told to lock in the features the game has, get it fixed, and get it shipped. We're looking to get it out before summer 2022. So that's a little concerning, guys, because I don't know that it had that many features. Like when we saw the demo where they had a couple OWL players on, they had casters there, etc. Like they were like showing us PvE skill trees, but those PvE skill trees were very not complete. They were tons of placeholder abilities and everything. So I'm not sure they're at a place where they can lock it in. I'm not sure they're at a place where they have the product. Now, lock it in could just be, hey, this is dev terminology for no more adding new features. No more adding new features. Like, no more doing that. It's just make the stuff that we have work. And that could be fine because you've already laid out, okay, your features are, we're going to have this for PvE, we're going to have this for skill trees, we're going to have this, but we actually need to go do them. And that could be fine, but there's a lot of work to do before summer of 2022 for that. Another source, a member of franchise management, also corroborated this version of events. Okay. Is it a different franchise or the same franchise? That's going to strengthen it if it's a different franchise that said that, but okay. We've all been told that the aim is Q2 of next year, they inform us. The timing to release will factor in the league schedule because obviously they don't want to switch game versions in the middle of a season. So they're telling us they don't believe there's even a point in having another season until L2 comes out. And I get that. I get that. I get that from an ownership standpoint. The awkwardness of the season schedule is kind of such that, like, you really want to release it before after. You can't afford for after. So that either forces a rush or it forces the league to be delayed. Ugh. On August 11th, GG Recon reported that the league would go on a year-long hiatus before Season 5 began. They wrote, according to multiple sources within the Overwatch League, the league office has told teams that the fifth season of the Overwatch League is going to be delayed past its usual starting point in the first half of the year. Sources are dating the suggested start of the league in late summer at the earliest, with its likely point being mid-fall. Okay, so they're delaying it. So they're not delaying it a year, but it's a year-long hiatus when you include its usual off time. They also added that the reason for this was a delayed launch of Overwatch's sequel, Overwatch 2, which the league wants to play next year's season on. Okay. Shortly after publication of the story, the Overwatch League Vice President John Spector tweeted, "It's really not practical to respond to every rumor about our future plans, but in this case, this story is inaccurate. We have not set our communication dates about our 2022 season yet, but we do not plan to take a year-long hiatus in any scenario we are currently considering." So, the problem that I think you run into here is they can be defining words differently. Like, this could just be wrong, right? This could also just be, hey, I'm being told to say this and I'm going to go say this, and then my boss is going to go tell me, great, you've done a good job telling the people this when you didn't know better. Now that you've told them that, we're going to tell you that actually we are going to do that. But the other possibility is he's viewing this year-long hiatus, John Spector, as, hey, he's answering this in the narrow frame of the league is not going to go, we're taking a year off. Like, we have a 2021 season and then we have a 2023 season. Like, there's ways to play word games here that you can be like, no, I was accurate in that statement. I wasn't lying, etc. So to me, this isn't a complete rebuttal to this. But ultimately we don't know. Mhm. However, multiple sources that work within the league confirmed that this denial wasn't telling the full story, and the denial was mostly made on the basis of semantics. So exactly what I said. Okay. The denial was a technicality one. One internal Activision Blizzard source told us there's no plan set in stone yet, as they're coming up with multiple models to discuss with the owners. What looks most likely at the moment is that we run a few Overwatch League branded events as they run into a delayed regular season while Overwatch 2 is tweaked. So they do stuff like the Battle of California, where you had those three teams go against each other in previous years. They do things like battles of regions, things like that. They tell teams, hey, go host some local tournaments under your team branding, because that was one of the benefits you got off of buy-in spots anyways, that you could host lands. Sure. What looks most likely at the moment is that we run a few. Oh yeah, we said that. The hope is that we get Overwatch 2 to at least a playable beta in time for those events, but if not, we will run these competitions on the existing game. So while there will be competitive Overwatch being played and franchise teams will be competing in those competitions, the actual league component is more than likely to be delayed. This was followed by another report published by Dot Esports, so this is different than published by GG Recon. On August 11th, in response to GG Recon's original story, the report states the Overwatch League is assessing its options for 2022, including a potential extended offseason following the 2021 season and interim events that could include non-season based tournaments amid the uncertainty of the release calendar for Overwatch 2. Spectre did not react to this report. Well, he'd set himself up to say, I'm not going to react to further reports by saying this, it's not practical to respond to every rumor. That's like his way of saying, oh, no. I'm if you guys get closer to right, I don't have to respond because I've already said I'm not going to respond to things. Yeah, we know what that is. What's funny, the source said, is that there's also a strong likelihood these events are run in partnership with all third-party operators we've isolated ourselves from over the first game's life cycle. We're hoping the excitement around Overwatch 2 is significant enough that they're willing to let bygones be bygones. Why would they do that? Why would the third-party leagues effectively that host this stuff go, oh yeah, you're not gonna ruin us this time. You're not gonna pull the rug out from us this time. You're totally gonna pull the rug out from them, and it's not even a secret. And what they mean by this, at least I expect, is before Overwatch League was a thing, there was a professional Overwatch scene. It was things like, hey, we had Apex, not Apex Legends, Apex. Apex was considered ultimately became considered the top of pre-Owl Overwatch, but it was run in South Korea. It was run broadcast, you'd have broadcast studios and everything, and it was quite well done. You also had monthly mealies. I believe we had Alienware as a sponsorship for that, but monthly mealies where, hey, these were things that were done in NA pretty regularly. You'd have things, and you still have a little bit of this, of like the Beat Invitational. You'd have all of these things that are like, hey, we're going to go do these things. We think it helps, builds our brand. We get to use Overwatch, works pretty well. But Overwatch didn't play particularly nice with them. They basically banned them from existence when Owl came out. Some of them have worked their way in a little bit into the collegiate scene. That's sort of been allowed, but like Premier Overwatch, Pro Overwatch, no, it's gone. There's no challenge to Overwatch it because they didn't want a situation where this is Owl, this is the best. And here's this third party thing that is a third party circuit of tournaments. And wait, are these guys actually better than the players in Owl? They didn't want anyone to even have that question, so like, nope, we're just getting rid of this. The only league that's really going to be allowed to exist is Contenders, and Contenders, well, we promote from Contenders, these are academy teams, so no one will think that Contenders could be better than Owl. If this still existed, ironically, this could have gone on without Owl in some ways. I'm not saying it would have been perfect, but yes, it also would have pulled potential viewership and therefore dollars from Owl, so it wasn't going to be allowed to exist. And I understand that, that's fine. But expecting them to now come back and play nice when the same thing is going to happen, like, who, you, it, of course not. Of course not. Okay. So if there's going to be this stuff, there's going to be separate tournaments, events, etc. It's going to have to be run by the franchise team owners. And that means the franchise team owners pouring money in, hoping to get money out because they are events that you can have people visit. It's sort of back to the location-based model, but it is requiring sponsors that are not sponsors, owners that are very checked out in some ways at this point to go, no, for real, invest one more time this time. You're going to get the payoff this time, which is going to be a tough sell to them. But they're really the only ones who actually have rights to do this stuff right now. They got rights when you bought slots to host like 5 events a year or something. It might be more, it might have been less, but something along those lines. Yeah. The next ownership meeting is slated to take place on Thursday, September 2nd, and it is hoped that the plans for the league will be decided upon. However, it won't be as simple as making a decision about dates. There are multiple factors at play, ranging from existing contracts, potential delays in Overwatch 2's developments, and further pandemic protocols. Yeah, there's real questions about contracts there, because while the league has made it easier and easier to get players off of contracts, oh, this is an emergency situation, you can drop them, it's fine. Well, they've done that. There is ultimately are we going to see everyone drop their roster because they were on year-long contracts and it doesn't make sense to sort of sign them to prevent other people from getting them? Like, or are we going to see poaching? What are we going to see here? That'll be interesting. We need to we're getting into that. We need to make a decision before October because that's when we do player contracts, a member of the franchise management explained. Typically, players are on 1-year deals that run October to October. If players don't have anything to compete in until the middle of next year, then the thought is, why should we foot the salary bill for a stunted season? Renegotiations are going to have to take all of this into account. Sure, no, they are. And that's tough for the players and that's tough for the teams, the ownership. That is a challenging situation, and it'll be interesting to see, is that going to lead to you drop everyone, but then you can't necessarily get them back because some other team went, nah, we'll pay them, or we'll just sign them a month before you sign them, or whatever, and we see all the teams shake up. Is that going to be a drain of talent because now the teams are worse because there's even less synergy going forward from season to season because players got moved around? Is that going to cause a, hey, you all dropped everyone, and maybe that leads us to a situation where there's more bidding war over players? We can dream, but I don't think it's likely. Um, that's interesting. Given these issues, not all franchises would be too upset at the prospect of the league actually going hiatus for a year. One franchise manager summed it up by saying, our suggestion would be for the league, of course it would be for the league to pay us a stipend and just wait for a year. It'd give us more time to get things back to normal, for them to do what they need for this lawsuit and Overwatch 2 getting finished. Until that happens, it just feels like we're burning money for nothing. Right, but why is the league going to pay you that? They're not going to. Like, of course, you should go to the media and suggest that Activision Blizzard should pay you that. And of course, there's going to be some sympathy with that because e- everyone hates Activision Blizzard right now in the press. But like, that's not going to happen. Like, that's just not going to happen. And that's a silly. Like, come on. Okay. I will now respond to chat. If you guys have things you want to say, I'm obviously behind on chat, but please do throw them up there. I will get to them. If you want to jump to the front of the line, you can super chat. And then depending on how interested people are, maybe we'll check out comments. I don't see any sort of comment option here on this website. Doesn't look like it. So we may head over to competitive Overwatch and check out comments because this story did get linked there, are going. Okay. About when I expected it to come out, sometime mid to late 2022. I have a feeling that it's going to be rushed into terrible release. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. If they're forcing them to put a lock on it based on what we saw in some of the early stuff, that would be my great concern for me. They should release Overwatch 1.5 next year, then Overwatch 2 in 2023. Right, and they'll only make you pay half price to upgrade to Overwatch 1.5, but then full price to upgrade to Overwatch 2. I'm kidding, but hey. I honestly think it's a fair bet that Overwatch 2 PvE will be good. I'm more concerned about PvP. Could be. That could very well be true. I'm surprised it's not going to arbitration. Um, what? What specifically going to arbitration? The lawsuit between California and Blizzard Activision? I'm not. I'm not remotely surprised that that's not going to arbitration. States don't really like going to arbitration, and they don't have to when they're dealing with companies, when they're going after things. If we were talking about the league and the ownership group, the owners of the different franchises, yeah, if anything serious tried to happen there, it would potentially have to go to arbitration. But I don't really think the owners have much of a leg to stand on. Those, like most contracts when it comes to leagues, the league has a fair amount of power, even more so than you'd see in something like baseball or basketball or something like that, because the league owners also actually physically own the IP that you're competing in. Major League Baseball doesn't own baseball, they just own the league. You think they'll rename it to Overwatch League 2, Overwatch 1.5 hashtag? Um, Probably not. They might call it that a few times, but I think they'll just continue to call it Overwatch League. That would be my guess. Next season, OWL exclusive to Facebook Gaming. Do you think they need to push back to Twitch? I don't think they can. I think that would be challenging. I think if they got to a point where neither party was willing to offer them any money and they were just doing the standard partner agreement that a Twitch partner or YouTube partner has, they could go back to Twitch and that would be fine. But I don't think they're going to get extra money from I don't think they're going to get an amount of extra money from Twitch for being there the way that they did the first time, or the way that they ultimately probably did from YouTube by going back to Twitch. I think it would be helpful to them to go back to Twitch, but I think Twitch sort of knows that they have a little bit more of the power position than they do in that situation. Blah says, I think the end of OWL is near. Could be. Yeah, unless OWL 2 is a massive hit. I think that's kind of what we're all looking at. Yeah. Owl 2 is gonna have to be a massive hit. And they stacked the deck to make it so that it has the potential to be the active hit, but oh no, you're freezing development when maybe it wasn't done, you're freezing the adding of new features. That doesn't smell like a good recipe for it being a massive hit. But sometimes it is. Sometimes game development will just go on too long and get too bloated. Like, oh, here's our 8 year long game development. Well, by the time you release it, your engines are old and your scopes just kept changing. We've seen that with some of the, Final Fantasy 15 stuff. We saw that with Star Wars The Old Republic, that actually ended up being a good game. But the reality is the first 4 years of development could have just been scrapped and they'd have been fine. Things like that. Chicago Huntsmen were allowed to rebrand away from the org's name instead of Neutral. Okay. Which is unlikely. It being a major hit, sure. I don't think we know that until we know if 5v5 is done well or not. Sure. I feel like 5v5 could be amazing, but it's going to be a very delicate thing to set up. It could be. What if the value of the franchise went below zero? It's not impossible given the running costs of a team. It's absolutely not impossible, but the value of something is also factoring in its potential for growth. Like it's when the price of something, the price that you pay to buy something is factoring in the potential for potential growth and the potential for potential loss. Like, okay, you're going to burn, let's say you're going to burn 800K. Let's say you're going to burn this a year running a team. Okay, fine. That sucks. This definitely lowers the value of the thing. It does. It lowers the value of your spot of this team of owning this thing. But there's a percent chance that Overwatch 2, maybe it's a 3% chance, maybe it's a 50% chance, maybe it's an 80% chance, is going to be bottled lightning and just amazing, and everyone is going to love it. And this is going to be small potatoes, and you are going to wish you could have bought something for $20 million that you then had to continue to spend 800K on a year to get, because now that thing is worth, let's say, 60 million or 80 million or whatever, because even though it costs 800K a year to run, your alcohol sales, your sponsorship deals, your merchandise sales, your what you're doing in terms of tax breaks that you're getting from a city that has said, please, we desperately need something to be here to bring people to migrate to our city, to want to work here, etc. So we'll give you this, we'll build a stadium for you, etc. Things like all these things are worth combined, let's say 2 million a year. Oh, well, yeah, I wish we'd done that. Right? Like again, now you've only maybe got a 3% chance of that, or maybe you've got a 50, or maybe you've got an 80. We don't know. I think it's closer to this one than it is to this one. But, that's I don't actually think it's this one. I think it's probably better than 3%. I just don't think it's 80. So you look at that and go, you are factoring in the chance for growth. I mean, most startups fail as a thing, but that doesn't make a startup that doesn't necessarily make a startup stock, if you could freely trade it, absolutely worthless. It makes it worth not very much, but it doesn't make it worth zero, even though what owning a startup before it's profitable is basically they're going to keep coming back to you and asking for more investment money. That's what it is. So like that's how that stuff factors. And if it gets really bad, and it might be at that bad point, then you just go, well, before it gets to that, you go, no, we'll liquidate out. We will liquidate out of this. We're done. And by liquidating out, we just mean we're cutting losses, we're declaring bankruptcy on it, etc. Hire Temporal to run the Owl. I did apply, and I actually did go through interviews for effectively to run one of the franchises. I didn't ultimately get selected. Sounds like I should have been, but hey, who knows? Temporal Amaranth crossover stream when? uh, And I should say on that one, it was clear that the person who was like, oh, it was like, okay, hey, go be the GM of this team, etc. But it was clear the person who was doing the interviewing was effectively up here, and they actually wanted to do all of what a GM's duties should have been. So it was sort of like, this isn't really going to be a fit because I'm ready to GM, but you're wanting to micromanage all this GM stuff. And really, what you want me to do is oversee your coaches because you're worried that your coaches aren't any good. That's not really GMing anymore. Like, overseeing the coaches is part of a GM's job, but like, there's a lot more operational stuff and, operational stuff that you oversee, type team sales team overseeing type stuff that you do. There's a lot more to being GM of a franchise. Anyways, didn't matter. There was not a meeting of the minds there, so it did not happen. But hey, on Twitch, you could also do a hot tub stream, so that could be a factor. That's true. You could do that there. Did Twitch start doing L before or after the Amazon acquisition? After. They need to add SR Decay back in Overwatch 2. Imagine getting a GM Rusty Tank. That they're probably going to do a reset. I think we've had confirmation of that. Those 50 layoffs were all of the tank players. No, not yet. Aaron already said there will be an MMR reset. Yeah, for Overwatch 2. Kellogg sponsors a huge number of Apex Pro teams. I think it's nearly a dozen, so it looks awful to have them pull out of Owl. Polygon and Kotaku are you. So, like, Kotaku at least has actually gotten better than it used to be. In recent years, Kotaku has gotten better. They sort of did the stop doing politics and cover gaming. Get your politics, get your wish casting, get your what do I want to call this? Get your like, their ownership group effectively said, get your activism out of here and get back to reporting video game news. And they mostly held them to that. I'm still not willing to like reward them with my clicks mostly though, because they were so bad for so long that I'd rather use other sources because they were so bad for so long. Polygon is fantastic. Always has been a good source of content. They were less bad than Kotaku. They have, but they were not amazing. Again, I'm not saying they're terrible now, but they have a history of time where they were not. News maybe less so, but crazy good content. Okay, well, I was more talking about the news. Just the talent trees is a crazy amount of work, given that there are 32 heroes that have to be somewhat balanced even for PvE only. Sure. Borderlands releases a hero as DLC, and it's just artwork, basic abilities, and talent trees are the most fiddly part. Okay. PvE balance can come with patches. The more pressing issue is getting the talent trees functioning. I could see that. Good to have you here, Matt Fry. I haven't seen you in our chat before, but happy to have you here as a viewer. Hopefully they release a good amount of heroes. I'm a little scared they may release less than what we would have gotten if they just released regularly. I'm almost certain they will. Like, if they release 6 or less heroes, the negative backlash storm that they're going to get from the fans in media, on Twitter, on social media, and all that is going to be huge. I think if they release like 8, they can get away with it, even though we should probably have that by now. And if they go more than that, we're good. That's my current view on it. But obviously, the longer they wait before releasing the game, the higher this number has to go for it to sort of work. But you guys let me know what you think your number is. What number of new heroes do you think they need in the game? New heroes that aren't hot garbage. Do you think they need in the game for there to not be like a huge negative backlash? And does that number actually, in your mind, have to be greater than the number that they would have had if they'd given us our, what was it, a hero every 4 months? Something like that model that they originally supposedly had. Let me know either in chat or you guys can leave that in comments below if you're watching this as a video. I like the expression weasel word for replies based on semantics. Yeah. The third-party leagues that Blizzard the third-party leagues that Blizzard deliberately and openly destroyed. Alienware Monthly Melee. Yep. Ghosty Gamers Weeklies. Yep. They didn't just ban them when L came out, they banned them 1 year before L. Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. Probably drop everyone except the star players, namely Flex DPS. Could be, could be. When's Overwatch Classic coming out? Good question. But which balance patch are we getting for Overwatch Classic? And is it no changes or some changes? Like, are we getting Overwatch Classic, the release version with, McCree who just deletes tanks with Fan the Hammer? Or are we getting the version just a couple months later where the game was probably at one of its better balance points where, hey, maybe Soldier's a little powerful, but I don't actually think we'd think that by today's standards. But McCree doesn't just destroy things anymore, and it's like, Soldier and Pharah are kind of good DPS, but so is Genji. Tanks are fine, supports work. That version. Shorter Widowmaker grapple cooldowns, that could be scary. Like, which version of the game are we getting? Like, actual release or a couple months after? Because I actually think the thing that most people would watch for Overwatch Classic is a couple months after release. And I find a lot of games do that. They do their original release. The whole team was on board that built the game, so they have a good understanding of what the game needed. But then they actually see it from the testing. Like, they've laid off most of their people because the game's been released, and now, or they've moved them to different things, whatever. But they have a much smaller team. But there's still enough knowledge in the team, still enough memory of what it was supposed to be that, like, that first major round of patches or so tends to lead to the best version of the game, because it's like, now it's been adequately play tested, and you have a good memory of the strong, firm understanding of what the game was supposed to be. I find that tends to be the best version of the game, personally. And I've seen that in MMOs, SWTOR, for example. I've seen that across a couple different examples. Not quite the release one, but the one, like the first major change tends to get you like, yes, you've hit it, now don't touch it. But that's not how modern gaming tends to work. Modern gaming is batches are content, and therefore you want to keep doing them. Doesn't have to be that way, but it is for most things. Dang, I'm late to this party. Too busy winning games on Diva. Nice, Sheldon. Nice. If Overwatch 2 does not come with the 6v6 QP arcade mode, I'll have a social life. Ha! Temporal, you can say it was Boston. We won't tell. I can neither confirm nor deny whether Boston has given me offers to work for them, but the GM position that I was talking about was not for Boston. And I'm not going to give you any more hints or guesses or let you play process of elimination with that. Having Temporal as a GM and drawing on Zoom calls with Hell to prove his points would be amazing, right? Right? Hot tub stream with Scarf would be unique. That's true. That's true. Hey, Bunny. No biggie. No biggie. We're happy to have you here. Economist and Forbes are probably the most journalistic news sources. Wait, issues with Kotaku? I'm not going to say that word. I know what you're saying. I could probably get away with saying it once on the stream without it being a problem, but yeah. That would be one such example. But Kotaku also gave us issues with when they got to the whole Genguri scandal, when it was like, oh my God, we're gonna create a piece about how there's no women in the Overwatch League and it's because no one's qualified and this and that, and it's like, well, have you actually talked to anyone who's qualified to judge? Like, Genguri was at a place where her being in the league was totally reasonable, but it was also totally reasonable for her to not be in the league. Like, she was the best woman player, and she was at what in baseball you would call replacement level, where it's like, yeah, they could be on a major league team or they could not be on a major league team. And there were lots of other options that were just as good as her, and odds actually are that she shouldn't have been on a team. Not because like she's not good enough, but because there's a bunch of people that are roughly equivalent. Like, if you looked at, what was it, 12 teams originally, and you went, okay, the 6 people, the 7 people, the 8 people that are actually the best are on teams, and now you need to fill the remaining 4 teams, and you have 12 people that are all about the same level to pick from, and she's one of them. Yeah, it wasn't weird that she wasn't there. Anyway, but that turned into a massive frame job of how the league, hates women and the teams hate women and this and that, and could they believe it and they didn't pick her because of this, and it's like, that didn't happen. Or how they covered the Ellie situation. The Ellie situation was just absolute garbage, where they were like, oh my god, the Overwatch community absolutely hates women. Everyone is doubting that Ellie is a woman because she got to top 10, and that's why they're doubting it. And that was never what happened. What happened, and that was very much the story that Kotaku tried to tell, but that's not what happened. And Kotaku did not do a retraction. They did not do a correction. It was very obvious. I was in the coaching scene at the time. I was one of the people that scratched my head and went, who's Ellie? Like, top 500, guess what, guys? That's top 500. We know who's in the top 500. You don't just show up in the top 500 without being an alt account and be like, oh, yeah, this, especially multiple years into the game's lifespan. Well, you can show up in top 500, but you don't show up in the top 10. The top 500 know each other, is the point that I'm getting to. Like, they're not all best friends or anything, but we know the scene. And I also knew the tier 3 scene quite well, and she wasn't in it. So it was sort of like, hey, guys, like the reason that people are going, we don't buy this is because out of nowhere in top 500 and wasn't in the tier 3 scene, there's no way. It just doesn't make sense. This is clearly someone else. And again, if you told us that it was one of about the 4 women at the time that would have been qualified to be on a contenders team that we did know about, absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem. But that was not what happened. Instead, Kotaku and others went, this is what's going on. You actually got better reports on what was going on from places like Newsweek, of all places. Newsweek's esport division. It was laughable. But hey. Okay. Scared about all the new heroes they're releasing. Some of them are going to definitely be beyond broken. Oh, yeah. I would be happy with one as long as that one is... Okay. Overwatch Classic could be Season 3. That was my favorite season. Sure. 1 new tank, 1 new support, 2 new DPS is my prediction for Overwatch 2. Then they're done. If that's what they release, the backlash will be huge. I think a good argument could be made for Overwatch Classic to be the best balance patch that will be released before 5v5. Anyone remember Season 1 Zen who got eliminated from a Widow body shot? I think you're thinking beta. I don't remember Season 1 Zen going down to a body shot, but I could be mixing up beta and Season 1 there. I don't think Season 1 had Zen die to body shots, though, from Widow. I was thinking today, who still plays Smash Melee? The most hardcore players. The game has not changed since release. That's the path Overwatch is taking right now. Or the Ellie situation. Here we go, James Daly. Or the Ellie situation where gamers were, I'll say it, sexist for saying they thought she was fake when she was fake. The conclusion was gamers are sexist. Yeah. Personally, I wouldn't mind if the game didn't get content, if we instead got very distinct releases, like going from Melee to Brawl. Okay, sure. That's a little bit of a different model than is modern gaming now. Like, I get what you're saying from Melee to Brawl, but you'll notice the current Smash Brothers game does keep adding new heroes. Previous Smash games didn't really have to do that, but in the modern day, they keep adding new characters to play, which is sort of different than their past. But I see what you're talking about. Yeah, thanks for that one, Haunt, Epic Troll. Yeah. Ultimately, the guy who pretended to be Ellie was right. She was offered the job he had been trying for months. Yeah, it was Punisher. Yeah. With no checks. I know. I personally like to restrict my talent pool based on arbitrary dimensions and prejudices. Why maximize productivity when you can shoot yourself in the foot? That is beta Zen. That's what I thought. Widow damage was nerfed in the very first patch along with McCree, very first balance patch, I should say. I'd have to look at the timeline because I thought it was beta. Maybe you're right. Maybe it wasn't beta. Maybe it was live game, but Season 1 didn't start until the game had been live for a couple months. So maybe it was that sort of dead zone, we'll call it. Don't be a beta Zen. Okay. So I'll let you guys get some more stuff in chat there because I think we're having be enough because I think we're having an interesting conversation on this one. I'm going to, in the meantime, though, to let you guys get a little bit ahead of me on chat, jump over to Reddit because we can get some comments there and see what people have to say. If you guys are enjoying this type of content, going over the news or this piece specifically, do feel free to throw a like on the video. And if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing. In fact, if you want to be here to catch me live when I go over these things, you can absolutely do that notification bell that YouTube has for their platform. But I actually recommend joining my Discord, and in there, going down to Get Roles, React to become a watcher, and you'll get notifications. So you can see what we're doing on stream, what topics we're covering, and if it's something you want to be a part of, so that you can talk about how that's working, what's going on. Like, hey, I want to share my input on this potential year-long hiatus Al was going on. I want to talk about that. Absolutely. Be here to talk about it. Become a watcher. Zen absolutely vanished from play in June, July 2016, and when Widow got nerfed, it was like we got a new character called Zen. Uh, it was cool being able to get high damage as Widow, even if you couldn't name. I hear you. Okay, so here we are. First comments. We need to make a decision before October because that's when we do player contracts. A member of franchise management explained typically players are on 1-year deals that run October to October. We read this already. That's fine. The commenter says, I do not envy the position teams are going to be. Sorry about that. I do not envy the position teams are going to be in this offseason, and that if Q2 2022 start date is accurate, imagine having to build a team around next season being played on Overwatch 2 without even having full details about what the new heroes are going to look like, let alone reworks, drastic changes to 5v5. I don't think that matters very much, honestly, having to build your team around not knowing what it looks like. Like, yes, it hurts, but everyone is on that it hurts playing ground. So like it's not like other people have information you don't about what the game's going to be. So you're just going, let's get the most elite gamers that we can. Like, okay, I'm okay with that. Let's overvalue flexibility rather than being the best Diva one trick, or in previous seasons the best Lucio. Like, I'm okay with slightly different skills being valued, especially since this isn't really surprising the leagues. They've got everyone signed to 1-year contracts. No, mostly people aren't on 3, 4, 5-year contracts. Um, yeah, that one doesn't bother me. It's certainly a little bothersome, interesting, whatever you want to call it, that like, hey, it's delayed. Hey, what does this do? Does this cause them to release all the players? Are players going to stay in the scene when they're not really making very much? When they're not making money because they're between contracts, and now they're going to have an abbreviated season, and um, they have to invest again in playing to be good at this game called Overwatch 2 that maybe plays differently enough that they have to, or are they going to kind of wise up and go do something else? There's a bit of a question to be had there. Like, is there going to be talent available? I think there will be, because I think enough people want to play video games professionally. Like, they're the dream that they'll do it. They shouldn't. They should take that as their chance to exit, to go stream, etc., or to go pursue other things. But I get it. Actually, I think it's more of a blow to players. The only ones that'll be retained are the superstars and those with big brands, probably. The rest will have to wait until Overwatch 2 comes out, and this source said and as the source said, the team shouldn't be playing salaries that yield virtually no results. The league need to justify the investment, sure, but the league's also not going to pay a stipend. So let's get rid of that. At least we didn't see that suggestion. That's a good point, especially teams looking to rebuild. Honestly, this is probably much better news than they were expecting. A full year off would have been disastrous, and seeing them release this case late 2022 release means they will at least need to be rostered. There isn't enough time for teams to figure out how Overwatch 2 actually works right. They're going to have to roster people before they fully know how Overwatch 2 works, but that's fine. That doesn't mean that it's great for the players, though, because people can get dropped rather than carried over for synergy. That's not too wild there. Jumping back to chat. I would have been okay at Widow back when she body shotted for 150 in Zen cut. Yeah, I hear you. Symmetra Lucio support days. Oh, yeah. Charge on CD says, I'm mad I missed the Your Overwatch reaction video live. Excited for if you decide to hammer time their Rhine vid. Probably at some point. I'd like to do someone else besides them next, though. Glad I got on this one, though. Here for the React anti-meta. Okay. When have they redone graphics in Overwatch? I look at an old clip and see Mercy Beam looked different at first, and then Moira's Coalescence looked different, then now for a bit, maybe different graphic setting. Probably mostly different graphic settings. We asked for ages for them to do sort of a upkeep patch, sort of a, hey, clean this up a little bit patch, an optimization patch to go, please optimize this. We've been losing frames forever. We eventually sort of got one. Not as good as we would have liked, but they made us run a long time without one as the game got messier. You want me to hammer time the tier list video? Maybe. Mercy Beam was changed right before Owl, so spectators could tell the difference when colors weren't reliable. Yes, that did happen. That did happen. That's true. I used to always your Overwatch tier list videos to heart, and then if he would put junk in S tier or something like that, I would tell my friends to pick junk now where you're throwing. Ah, well, I'm glad you're wiser now. I'm glad you are wiser now. Okay, do we have another interesting comment here? This is one of the mods, right? Watchful One. It's not a downside to the league system. It's a downside to trying to cater to PvP players and build a PvE game. League doesn't have this problem since they aren't waiting to release a completely new game. Valorant, Dota, CS:GO, every other team-based pro league doesn't have this problem. COD did when they switched to 6v6 to 5v5, but no one knew what was happening a year ahead of time. Okay. That's a bit of an interesting reaction to that. I feel like that's in response to a different comment. So when the dev team has been told to lock in the features of the game, get it fixed and get it shipped. We're looking to get it out before summer 2022. Sounds like Activision has put its foot down internally and told the developers to stop coming up with new ideas, finalize their plan for the game, and get ready to ship within a year. Now, is that a good idea or a bad idea? Because if our ideas include 5v5, maybe we do want to stop new ideas from getting added because they might just get worse. But hey. Whether or not this hurts the quality of Overwatch 2 will remain to be seen. Obviously I'm flip-flopping on stances here. I flip-flopped there as a joke. There's very much a concern that locking it in when it's not ready to be locked in means you don't have a complete enough game. Okay. It's also big that we finally have a general time frame to speculate about. Not announced through an official source, though. And even when stuff does get announced through official sources, it sometimes gets delayed. That said, there's a lot more dependencies on this one that make it harder to delay, including ownership, who don't have much power in their contracts, but at least exist and at least are relatively powerful people, is able to push back and say, no, we demand it comes out on time because that's how the league works, etc., and we won't do another season on the other one. Sounds like the hope internally is a beta in early 2022, run tournaments with third-party organizers and OWL players until summer, and then coincide the new season with the launch of the game in summer. Could be. I think one of the biggest takeaways is that all parties have pretty much accepted that OWL is dead unless Overwatch 2 can provide it. The league has realized that it can't really do much to improve the quality of its product anymore and doesn't see the point in starting a new OWL season without Overwatch 2 being out. I mean, it could have actually done its localization. Yes, it couldn't really have done that this past year, but it could have in season 3. The owners are on board and don't want to invest any more money until Overwatch 2 is out either. They've always been a little unhappy about investing more money, which I do understand. I'm not necessarily knocking them for that. It's kind of crazy how much of this is riding on the success of Overwatch 2, not just monetarily for Blizzard, but also all of the livelihoods of everyone who earns their living off OWL. Let's just hope it can be successful. And that is the problem with being attached to an IP that you do not own. It's a problem. Yeah. Yeah. And we really get into IP law there, and we also sort of get into, well, should private servers be allowed? Should a release version of the game that everyone should be allowed to go back and play be allowed, etc.? Is it enough of a cultural thing? Does Blizzard own Overwatch? Does the culture of the world own Overwatch, etc.? And yes, I know Blizzard owns Overwatch, but like, should that be the case? I know, different question. We could go deep there, but like, people are attaching. Anyway, whatever. The league has realized it can't really do much to improve the quality of its product anymore. It's worth pointing out that L's main problem has been the absurd content drought. That's been one of the problems. Absurd content drought. It's been forced to suffer because of work on Overwatch 2. So we're in this bizarre chicken and egg situation where Overwatch 2 is creating problems that only Overwatch 2 is creating problems that only Overwatch 2 can solve. If Blizzard had never started hoarding multiplayer content to deliver with Overwatch 2, L might not need saving. So this is only a half truth. Like, yes, this has hurt it, but I'd probably consider this factor number 3 or 4 that has hurt Owl, not factor number 1 or 2. So like, it created a problem that only it can solve, but this isn't the lead problem in my mind that is hurting Overwatch League. Forgotten the excitement in giving a new hero during an owl season. I didn't really like it, honestly. I didn't like how wild, especially because for the first 2 seasons at least, it was like, okay, let's spend the entire first 3 stages or first 4 stages doing Mercy meta, and then let's do double sniper for the playoffs. Huh? Let's end the first 3 stages doing goats, and let's move to something completely different for stage 4 in the playoffs. What? Like, this doesn't determine what the best team was if the game changed so radically. Like, if it had changed 4 times throughout, no problem. But like, the majority of the season is on this, and then the finish is on this. Like, again, if it had actually changed meaningfully 3 or 4 times throughout the season, I don't mind determining the best team by this. But it was kind of wild. Hard to take it seriously. Integrity, competitiveness, not so much there. It's absurd when you think of the timing of everything too. Overwatch came out in 2016. At BlizzCon 2019, they announced they would be stopping development to work on Overwatch 2. That's 3 years into the life of the game. Now, if we get Overwatch 2 in mid 2020, that's almost another 3 years without content. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Your dates are a little iffy. Overwatch released May 2016. Last content we actually got was Echo in April 2020. 4 years. If Overwatch, that's more of a 2 year content. Still unacceptable, but not 3. Okay, fine. Okay. I'll see if there's anything else interesting in here. Let me catch up on chat first, but we're probably approaching the end of this one. Temporal has also been known to correct Mercy Beam colors with Epic Pen. It's true. It's true. That's the true UI for Mercy. Epic Pen colored beams. Nordstrom says it's still so concerning that they didn't know that CC would be a problem in 5v5 until we told them. Yeah. 5v5 was planned for longer. The BlizzCon Online footage only showed 5 players on each team, but almost nobody actually noticed. Interesting. I don't want to spoil the Your Overwatch video. Who do you think he ranked and praised as the best DPS? Remember, he made the video for gold plats. Who would you say is the best for gold plat compared to what you think is the best DPS hero? I don't know who we put as the best DPS hero. I legit don't know who we put as the best DPS hero. I haven't seen the video. And I'm probably not going to put my foot in my mouth by guessing there. But if you want to tell me, that's cool. Who do I think is the best DPS hero for gold to plats? I mean, it's probably not Kree anymore. Oh, let me pull up an Overwatch heroes list. If we're talking gold to plat, we're starting to leave Junkrat's effective territory. I mean, I assume that this is probably pretty high because they just go wild about this in gold to plat. It's not a good color for me to be using. I assume this is pretty high because they just go wild about this in gold to plat. This should also be high, but it might not be because she's a little, in some ways, more challenging to play. Echo here. Hanzo never stopped being good. Reaper's probably undersold, but I think by the time you get to plat, probably not the right answer. I think if you were more talking like gold silver maybe for that, similar for Junkrat. I don't know. I guess something in this range, probably not Echo. Probably Farah. That's my guess. Is sorry if I'm guessing what he said. Yeah. If I had to say the best one, if I had to say the best one, in that rank, I mean, which skills does this hypothetical gold or plat player have? Like, I'm pretty. We can't go with Tracer. She's a great hero, but she's not there. You could go with an Echo, a Hanzo. Yeah. No, people noticed it. Streamers were hypothesizing about it between BlizzCon and the PvP demo. Okay. If pros played Overwatch 2, the only way to see if pros playing Overwatch 2 is the only way to see Overwatch 2 content, it will get super high views. Yep, and that'll be the thing. And that might be one of the things that gets used as a negotiating tool. Like, hey, you're not going to get beta access to Overwatch 2 unless you're signed to one of the teams. And if you're not signed to one of the teams, you're going to be in trouble because if you don't have access to Overwatch 2, you're going to be in trouble. So accept our lowball offer. Like, there may be some pressures there. We'll have to see how widespread they get with their beta testing for that. Because that has historically been used as a way to, let's not kid ourselves, control reviewers, control negative press, only give it to, I'm not specifically saying with Blizzard, I'm saying in general in the beta scene, to make sure things get good reviews, get good feedback, but, it could be used worse in this case because it's like pros that are employed to play a game that have an attachment directly to it. Hope it doesn't come to that. Super wants to believe. No, if pros playing Overwatch 2 is the only way to see it, no one will care about it. I don't know. Especially if the pros are saying it's great. If I bought a Lucio All-Star skin, can Blizz legally turn off their servers and deny me? Absolutely. They absolutely can. I can pretty much guarantee you that your terms of service say they can. Should just wait until... no. IP loss is death of an author plus 72 years. So I forgot what it actually is for companies, so I just said that. Yeah, it's going to be different. They're going to be able to renew indefinitely. That's the modern world, unfortunately. I think content should have been added to Overwatch 1 rather than 2. It's crazy to me. What's that? It's crazy to me that they just ignore a live game for years while working on a sequel. It was a surprising move. How quickly they pulled the plug on working on it for how long they've taken to develop 2 was a surprising move. Companies are people legally, and that doesn't change the fact that they're getting to renew basically forever. They have lost so many players who might not come back for Overwatch 2, and there's a little bit more. Like, I hear what you're saying, but different people enjoy content differently. There's always going to be some number of people who are jump on, check out the next game, jump on, check out the next game, jump on, check out the next game. This is a way that some people play games. It's probably not how you play games, Dave, but this is how some people play games. And because this is how some people play games, companies recognize this and go, hey, we want to get these people. And it causes them to time release dates, to fight or not fight against other games. It causes all sorts of things because it's not just about having the best game. It's not just about retaining your audience. It's about, hey, can we get these audiences to revisit by releasing a new game, by doing a major content patch release, by releasing an expansion, by doing a balance patch that makes them believe that their hero is good again, etc. So some of the players that left Overwatch were just these kinds of players that, yeah, that's exactly what they'll do. Come back for Overwatch 2. And they were never going to stay with Overwatch long term. Some of them, anyway, doesn't matter. 76 is the best DPS hero. He said 76. Yikes. That is a take, all right. I would say Pharah, right now at least. Ashen Kree or B tier. Symmetra for sure. Symmetra's pretty good. You can look at win rates on Overbuff. He put Soldier. Oh, yeah. You say Soldier. You say Ash Soldier Torb. Abby says, nah, I can vouch. Reaper is ridiculously good in Plat. Been climbing for an ult with him. Pharah Genji is so easy to farm tanks. In that rank, they just feed hard. Sure, but that doesn't mean Genji is the best choice in Plat. Like, you finding success with Genji doesn't mean Genji's the best choice. It just means you've learned certain skills that let you work well with Genji. That's not going to be true of the majority of the latter. Hanzo never stopped being good. Having been sniped by Hanzo 3 times in a round last night, I would tend to agree. But best one in Plat, I'd probably base it down to around Torb for defense and Pharah for attacking Koth maps. Yeah, I'm not really going to buy into that whole, like, defense versus offense. Yes, it's probably a little more true with Torb than some other heroes, but I'm not buying into that. Pharah also plays better when she has map control than when she has to attack into map control. So, like, your premise is breaking down a little for me. Hanzo's just broken. His video is weird. He specifically said in the video that his video isn't for GML players. It's for the average player, which is gold plat, but he puts Ryan in the lowest tier. That sounds pretty broken. Short range damage, insane long range damage, insane one shot ability, shield break ability, ear cling, ult mobility abilities. Yeah, Hanzo's kind of silly. It's like Hanzo's a sniper. Now we're not going to remove his role as a sniper, but we're also going to make him a tank buster. Say what now? Oh, and let's give him some extra mobility. On top of his wall climb, which he already had in his mobility, let's give him a little hop. What? That design never made sense. I don't think people will welcome a future Overwatch 3 announcement after what this has been like. Oh no, they for sure won't. You simply cannot believe what a pro in any entertainment industry, in any entertainment field says. They can be contractually required to say or not say all sorts of things. Even if not required, they know which side their bread is buttered on, as the saying goes. There's some truth to that parody, but some people, at least in the old world, you kind of went, hey, I trust this person because they've said no to sponsorships for products that they don't like. They've said no to contracts for X that they have to say this, but then have said yes to contracts for X minus 60% where they can say whatever they want. Like, so, and that has caused their value, their faith, the faith of people in them to go up, which potentially eventually negotiates X up. But like, these people used to exist. They used to. We don't see much hope for them anymore, just like we don't see much hope for news media anymore. But hey, okay. When Overwatch 2 fails, they'll stop investing in the franchise. Symmetra is like a 5% higher win rate than other heroes in Silver Plat last time I looked. Yeah, Symmetra's not a bad choice. For that matter, I don't believe reviewers when companies are being extremely strict. If you're afraid of losing access, you won't review fairly. Yeah, it's been a problem. It's access journalism is what it is. It's just access review at that point. Though you can talk to reviewers who used to be in it or now are on the outside, and they'll talk about no, I never once had a fear of having product pulled or not getting the next thing, etc. But I was writing in such a way that I was trying to impress other reviewers or to secure my next job, or it got clickish and they were doing that. And I don't know. I don't know how much I can believe that because I wasn't like, I've heard that from people who seem genuine enough, but let me rephrase that. I don't completely buy that. Like, that might not have been true for, a couple sources that I've heard that from, but I definitely believe that there's some level of, hey, you're concerned about access and you know you won't get access next time, or if not next time, the time after that, etc. And it's the same thing that you run into with journalism in other fields where it's like, hey, you want to go get what this you want to go get what the general says, or what the general says about something, and that's what you're going to report rather than what the enlisted soldier says, because you would like to be able to use the general as a source in the future, and you're not going to challenge it and blah blah blah, because that's better for your career, and it is better for your career to do that, which is sad. It doesn't have to be better for your career. It could be better for your career to actually be, hey, you're going to go do this with accuracy when it comes to reporting, etc., and actually dig in and go do that. But it's painful in the short term, and there's no guarantee that it'll be better for your career. It's more dangerous. Ouch, blah. Ouch, blah. So and so might disagree that Soldier 76 is OP. It was a soldier. It wasn't a soldier we reviewed, but it was a soldier in a game that we reviewed. 7 visors, 1 elimination, and they had nano for some of those. They had mercy boost for some of those. Yeah. Sim has a 61% win rate in silver on PC, lol. So that's not totally true, Sheldon. Like, yes, Sim is a pretty good hero in silver, don't get me wrong, but Sim also is a disproportionate map pick, situation pick, where because she gets picked pretty heavily in situations that are good for her and doesn't get picked in situations that are worse for her, it does sort of impact her win rate. So that doesn't necessarily mean one tricking her is the best thing in the world. That said, one tricking her is not the worst thing in the world. She's quite fine, and I'm actually surprised that we don't get more Sim reviews. She's fine. The best heroes for each role in his video were DPS Soldier, Support Mercy, Tank Orisa. Okay. It will never end, Tim and Lucio. Oof. Worst for support, Lucio, DPS Sim, Tank Winston. DPS Sim is the worst. Interesting. And then you're saying Lucio is the worst support, but Winston is the worst tank. Usually those two would pair, and it would be Lucio Rhine if you were going to go like that. Whatever. Play Orisa in gold and spend the whole round walking backwards like a reversing truck. Okay. Imagine thinking about more than what's good for today and doing what's good for tomorrow, next week, next year, next decade, referring to declining sponsors for sake of integrity, honesty. Yeah, we don't do that in this world anymore, Nardstorm. Come on now. Come on. It's quarterly profits. It's quarterly profits. It's your next gig. Yeah, I know. Arista needs to make the beeping sound when she backs up. That could be fun. Uh, Arista truck skin, yes, definitely. Jinx, you guys were on the same page there. It's a good point regarding Symmetra. Yo, I'd sign up for a Symmetra review though. Okay. Overwatch League is presented by MyPillow. I can just go in blind and you can totally roast me. Gold plat ain't giving up Ryan Zara anytime soon. Right, right. Okay. I think we've come to the end of this one. I'll do a quick skim here. No, I think we covered the most interesting comments. And you guys had some good chat here. I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. Again, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as I really do appreciate that. It actually does help out, and this is the kind of one that can get some broadcast, get some potential shares, maybe even get some more viewership and grow us. So that would be cool. Or if you are looking to see these when they go live, join the Discord. Like I said earlier, you can become a watcher. That works great. And yeah. Okay, that's going to do it. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.